Hello, and welcome to the dungeon. I'm your host, Rob. First of all, I want to apologize for not making a video for the last couple of months. I do have a lot of excuses. I've been moving and whatnot. Also, my wife and I are getting separated, so that's not great either. But the truth is, I could have been making videos. I've been, kind of set up here now for a bit. I've just been kind of lazy. Also, my D&D, motivation has been kind of low because I'm just kind of, waiting for the new stuff. But now that that's coming, I'm like, I need to actually get my butt in gear and start making some videos again. So today, though, I figured I'd still talk about Aberrant Mind Sorcerers because that's what I'm actually playing in our Ghost Assault March campaign. And I've talked about this character a couple times, so I'm not going to go into a ton of detail on it. I'm not going to speak about her specifically in any rate. I just wanted to talk about the Aberrant Mind Sorcerer in general because now that I'm playing one, I've kind of had to revise my opinion of how good they are upward. I thought they were probably the second best sorcerer subclass, only behind the Clockwork Soul. I think they might be better than Clockwork Soul. Now, that's probably not a fair comparison because I haven't played a Clockwork Soul sorcerer. If I did, maybe I'd be like, I don't know. I think they might actually still be better. Maybe I was right the first time. But now that I'm actually screwing around more with things like the psionic spells and psionic sorcery, I'm starting to realize just how good these abilities are. Honestly, psionic sorcery could be the best sorcerer subclass ability of any subclass. It is really, really amazing. So I figured I'd just make a video talk about the Aberrant Mind Sorcerer, which, kind of late to the table, but that's all right. Better late than never. And just kind of talk about my thoughts on the subclass now that I've been playing it. Now, obviously, I don't have all the high-level abilities yet. And I'm going to be multi-classing with 2 levels of Warlock, so that's also going to, be a bit of a impediment to my road to 20. But so far, I'm really, really, really enjoying the subclass. And the character it's been a tough campaign so far. 2 characters have died so far. And I'm not one of them. Although I almost did die at level 1 a couple times. But there's been a few fights where if it wasn't for certain spells or abilities that I've had, we probably would have just TPK'd. So we'll talk about that in a bit. I'm going to leave the psionic spells and psionic sorcery till later in the video, even though those are abilities we get fairly early on, because I really want to go into more depth on them. Those have been the real revelation to me of how good these abilities are. I think one of my things too is that when I first saw the Aberrant Mind, the fact that you could change out your psionic spells is awesome, and the fact that you can get them is awesome, let's be honest. It basically doubles how many spells you get almost, maybe even more at some level ranges. But the fact that you had to switch to either, if you subbed out one of your spells, it has to be for a divination or enchantment spell, I thought it was a little weak. But at the time, I hadn't really, because I wasn't playing a character, I hadn't really gone in depth into looking at what spells I could choose to replace. And since you're only looking at 2 spells at, 1st, 3rd, 5th, 7th, and 9th level, there's not that many spells you need to replace. You're really just looking for 1 or 2 spells, probably from 1st to 5th level for each of those ranges. And you can keep the ones you like that you get automatically. You can switch out one that you don't like. And you don't need a lot of options. You just need 1 or 2 good options at each level range. And once I started actually digging into the spell list and seeing what was available, I was like, man, this is really, really strong. So let's just jump into the subclass features, right? At level 1, we're obviously getting our psionic spells to be discussed later. But we also get telepathic speech. So as a bonus action, choose 1 creature you can see within 30 feet of you. You and the chosen creature can speak telepathically with each other while the 2 of you are within a number of miles of each other equal to your charisma modifier, minimum of 1 mile. To understand each other, you must speak mentally in a language the other one knows. So you can't just speak in tongues or anything like that. You have to each know the language. I do think it's interesting that the creature you choose has to be within 30 feet of you when you use the ability, but can be within, however many miles equal to your charisma bonus once it's already taken effect. It does seem a little unusual, but it is nice that, you could, I don't know if you're going to have to be, 5 miles from the other person within a number of minutes, but being able to go into a different room or on different floors of a building, that kind of stuff. You could activate the ability, and then you can, like, you go this way, I go this way, and you activate your plan or whatever, and then you can communicate with the other person the whole way through. That is pretty nice. You don't have to stay in eye contact. They don't have to remain within 30 feet of you. It does give you some options there. Telepathic connection lasts for a number of minutes equal to your sorcerer level. So, obviously at level 1, that's okay, but it just gets better as you go. It ends early if you are incapacitated or die, or if you use this ability to form a connection with another creature. The other good thing about this is there's no limit to how many times you could use it. And I think this ability, and other abilities kind of similar to this one, but this one's, you're getting it for free essentially at level 1. It is great in social interactions. We've had times where we're in a social situation and I want to be able to communicate to my other players, but I don't want to say anything that the other party is going to hear. And so me being able to just telepathically talk to each person individually, like I'm not like Jean Grey or Professor X, I can't just link us all psychically. That's what Rary's telepathic bond is for. But I can speak to, one party member, then the next, and, relay this cleric's ideas to the fighter and vice versa, and, to the rogue or whatever, right? And it's been actually a very, very useful ability when I don't want people to know what we're talking about or thinking about. And honestly, these kind of social situations come up all the time in D&D. So in my opinion, this is a great first level ability. And it was one that I was kind of iffy on. It's like, yeah, okay, well, that's kind of cool, I mean, back when we first got the Player's Handbook, like 10 years ago, this would have been an amazing ability, I thought. But nowadays, there's lots of things that can allow you to communicate with other people telepathically. This one isn't even the best option. I'm like, but once I started using it, I'm like, oh, this is actually really, really, really good. It's not just kind of good. So moving on to level 6, we get Sonic Sorcery, also to be discussed in a moment. But I will say this is really the reason I decided to make this video, is because this ability, I think I was really sleeping on how good it is. I thought it was a good feature, like, 4 out of 5 type of thing. But now that I've been using it, this could be the best subclass ability of any sorcerer subclass. I'm not even kidding. This ability is phenomenal. You can get so much more mileage out of your spell slots, and, getting basically the subtle casting on top of that. This ability is insane. So, I'm not being hyperbolic here. This is one of the best sorcerer subclass abilities, I think, in the entire game. Anyways, we also get Psychic Defenses at level 6. You gain resistance to psychic damage, and you have advantage on saving throws against being charmed or frightened. Most of those are going to be wisdom saves. If your wisdom save sucks, then rolling with advantage might not help you much. But I still think this is a pretty good ability at lower levels. Like when you're level 6 and you first get this, I mean, psychic damage is fairly rare, but things that do psychic damage tend to do a lot of psychic damage. So having resistance to that is pretty good. A lot of those things give you a saving throw as well, so maybe you end up taking quarter damage, even better, right? The advantage against against charmed and frightened conditioned, which is, usually wisdom save. Like I said, at lower levels, this is pretty good. When you're saving against like a DC 13, 14, 15, if you have a +0 or a +1 wisdom save, rolling with advantage gives you a decent chance of making it. At higher levels, though, and I specifically reference this because our DM in our Saltmarsh campaign plans to continue after we're done Saltmarsh and go all the way to 20, and he said he even wants to keep playing at 20. He doesn't want to just get the 20 and end. So this is something I've thought about a bunch, is, if I'm fighting like Demogorgon and Orcus and, Archdevils, Vecna, whatever else it might happen to be, a lot of times those guys have saving throw DCs of like 19 to 21, and rolling with advantage isn't going to help you there much. If you need an 18 or better or a 20 in order to succeed, even with rolling with advantage is probably not going to be a big help. But like I said, at lower levels, really solid ability. Anyways, moving on to level 14, we get Revelation in Flesh. So obviously, I'm not high enough yet to have this ability, but as I was reading about it more and more, I started realizing, man, this ability is actually great as well. So you can unleash a torrent of aberrant truth hidden within yourself. As a bonus action, Nice. You can spend one or more sorcery points to magically transform your body for 10 minutes. For each sorcery point you spend, you gain one of the following benefits of your choice, the effects of which last until the transformation ends. Now notice you can actually stack these and get like multiple abilities. You could spend enough sorcery points to get every ability on this list if you really felt you needed it. Or you can just pick and choose. So, you can see any invisible creature within 60 feet of you, provided it isn't behind total cover. Your eyes also turn black or become writhing sensory tendrils. My character is a cute girl. I'm going with eyes black, not tendrils. But you can make the decision for yourself. Ability number 2. You gain a flying speed equal to your walking speed, and you can hover. This is very nice. As you fly, your skin glistens with mucus or shines with an otherworldly light. We're going to go with sparkly vampire, I think, in this case, for myself. The nice thing about this, though, is that it doesn't use concentration, right? So it's basically like a fly spell. I mean, granted, you can't upcast it and give you a whole party flight. That would be nice, but probably too much, let's be honest. But the fact that you can fly without using concentration, you can just be 30 feet up in the air, hammering people with, scorching rays or fireballs or whatever else you wanted to cast on them, right? And unless they have range attacks, you're going to be pretty safe. And even better, you could do that while casting like your Evoid's Black Tentacles or something like that, concentrating on that, locking some people in place while flying up in the air so they can't even hit you, and then hammering them with spells. So, multi-purpose here. But even just it's on my cheek, that was nice. Even just as an exploration tool, this ability is phenomenal. And like one sorcery point, by the time you're level 14, that is not a big cost at all. That's pretty good. Ability number 3. You gain a swimming speed equal to twice your walking speed, and you can breathe underwater. Moreover, gills grow from your neck or fan out from behind your ears, your fingers become webbed, or you grow writhing cilia that extend through your clothing. Sexy, of course. Again, though, this is a very nice ability. It's a bonus action, so if you just suddenly find yourself underwater, it's not like you have to take a bunch of time to ritually cast water breathing while you drown to death, You're just like, oh, spend a sorcery point, I've got water breathing, and I've got fast movement, twice my walking speed. So, again, not something you're probably going to be using every day, but when you need it, it's excellent. Your body, along with any equipment you're wearing or carrying, becomes slimy and pliable. You can move through any space as narrow as 1 inch without squeezing, and you can spend 5 feet of movement to escape from non-magical restraints or being grappled. I really do like the idea of you being like a flying ooze that can also see invisible while, darting around through the air. Again, though, just another great exploration and, scouting ability, right? Go under a door, maybe even through a keyhole. If the keyhole is big enough, it says the space of an inch, that's, could be a big keyhole, you never know. Either way, just a great ability with a lot of variety and a lot of circumstances where you can probably use it. It's unfortunate that it's a 14th level ability, but, it's pretty reasonable, I think, for a 14th level ability. It's quite powerful. Level 18, Warping Implosion. You can unleash your aberrant power as a space warping anomaly. As an action, you can teleport to an unoccupied space you can see within 120 feet of you. Immediately after you disappear, each creature within 30 feet of the space you left must make a strength saving throw. On a failed save, a creature takes 3d10 force damage and is pulled straight toward the space you left, ending in an unoccupied space as close to your former square as possible. On a successful save, the creature takes half as much damage and isn't pulled. Once you use this feature, you can't do so again until you finish a long rest, unless you spend 5 sorcery points to use it again. So, this is an 18th level ability. Most people are never going to get high enough to use it. It does take your action, which is kind of unfortunate. Like, if you look at things like, say, like Misty Step or, Fire Step, like, they're all bonus actions, So, this one's a little more costly to use. But at least you are a sorcerer. If you have Quicken Spell, you could teleport away with this and then Quicken Spell something, or vice versa. So it's not like it's taking your entire turn just to escape. Although, sometimes taking your entire turn to escape is the best thing you can do with your turn. Let's be honest. The damage is pretty pitiful. 3d10 force damage. when you're level 18, you could have hit people with a meteor swarm. So obviously you're not doing this for the damage. But I do like the pull effect. That can be handy, especially if you want to like quicken cast some sort of AoE spell or something like that. And now you can just hit a bunch of targets. They've all been pulled in nice and tight, and then boom, you hit them, Perfect for your Evoid's Block Tentacles, actually, which you're going to have to quicken cast because this took your action. But either way, I don't think that's too bad. Spending 5 sorcery points to use it a second time seems pretty unlikely to me. But I'd rather have the option on the 1 in a million chance I need it a second time than not have the option at all. So, do I think I'm going to spend 5 sorcery points to do this? Probably not. But I can do it once a day without sorcery points. And if I need it a second time in an emergency, at least that option is there. So that covers the rest of the abilities. As far as our psionic spells. So basically levels 1, 3, 5, 7, and 9, we're going to get 2 spells added to our spells known list. And as a sorcerer, where our spells known is a bit of an issue in many cases, this is just a huge game changer, honestly. This is the main reason why Aberrant Mind and Clockwork are just hands down the best sorcerer subclasses, is because you get so many extra spells. And a lot of times as a sorcerer, you can't afford to have a bunch of like circumstantial or even like, kind of like maybe social spells or whatever. You kind of have to pick a role and generally stick mostly to that role. Maybe you can branch out a little bit, but you just don't have enough known spells to do that. Whereas with these 2 subclasses, that actually isn't as much of an issue anymore. And one thing I like about the Aberrant Mind spells especially is that you do get some really nice things for social situations. And that is one place where I find, now I'm not saying sorcerers can't do this. I'm just saying that historically the sorcerers I have played with, they tend to focus on damage and blasting. So getting spells like, say, Calm Emotions or Detect Thoughts, these are actually kind of nice to have. I'm not saying don't ever switch them out, you might want to. But I'm saying that they are pretty handy to have. Calm Emotions can cancel like a fear or something, right? Your barbarian gets feared. Now he's worried he's going to lose rage, and you're just like, boom, Calm Emotions, you're good. Just get in there and keep attacking before you lose your rage, And, I don't mind that kind of stuff. It could also help to diffuse social situations gone badly. And the best part is, because it's one of your psionic spells, you can subtle cast it, and nobody even knows that you cast it, which makes it perfect in social situations. But anyways, so at level 1, we get Arms of Hadar and Dissonant Whispers. We also get the Mind Sliver cantrip for free. I don't know why, but I'll take it. That's an excellent cantrip. Arms of Hadar is a spell I don't really like much. Even on like melee warlocks, because it's on the warlock spell list, it's not very good, It's just not a good spell. So this is one I would definitely look to swap out. Dissonant Whispers can be pretty nice. It's a bard spell, which normally, normally that's the only people who get it. So having that option is good. It can cause forced movement. You might be able to get some opportunity attacks or something. If you want to play like more of a battlefield control type character, starting right from level 1, it's not the worst option. Like, you don't have a lot of good crowd control effects. So having this as a first level spell added for free, it's not the worst thing ever. But again, if you wanted to change it out, I don't really blame you either. So the options I put down as being, I thought, the 2 best were probably Silvery Barbs. How do you go wrong there? But also, speaking of the Warlock spell list, you could take Hex. Is Hex going to be as good with, say, a Firebolt or something as it would be with Eldritch Blast? No, because Eldritch Blast is making separate blasts as it levels up, allowing you to apply that Hex damage multiple times. This isn't doing that with like a Firebolt. But there are other cantrips you could use it with, or other spells you could use it with. It might take a couple rounds to set up. But I don't think this is a terrible option when you're low level, because the truth is most of your cantrips just aren't hitting very hard. So being able to like cast Hex at level 1 and fire off a Firebolt, for example, is going to be a pretty big damage boost on a cantrip that normally just doesn't, I mean, your likelihood of rolling a 1 is just the same as a 10. And either way, it's, not going to be great. But adding that extra bit of damage is pretty good. I don't know that I want to keep Hex forever. But as I level up, I could, get rid of it or whatever else, right? I think that as a low-level damage boost, though, it's not the worst option we could have. Obviously, Silvery Barbs is the clear winner there, but if you want to get rid of both, Hex is worth considering. At level 3, we're getting Calm Emotions and Detect Thoughts. I actually quite like both these spells, especially Detect Thoughts is another one. It's just phenomenal when you can subtle cast it in social situations. You want to read people's minds, know what's going on. You sit inconspicuously at a table while your allies talk to different people, and you start trying to read their mind to collect all their surface thoughts or even dig deeper, but nobody knows you're doing it because you're subtle casting it. Perfect. However, if you want to get rid of them, I did put down Tasha's Mind Whip. I love that spell. And Hold Person. I prefer Tasha's Mind Whip, to be honest. But if you're taking, say, the Heightened spell meta magic, then Hold Person, give somebody disadvantage on the saving throw. That can be quite excellent as well. Either way, both of those are pretty decent spells. But I don't mind Calm Emotions and Detect Thoughts either. I've had some good results with Detect Thoughts so far. Level 5, we get Hunger of Hadar and Ascending. Now, on my particular sorcerer that I'm playing the Saltmarsh, Hunger of Hadar is something I've been definitely looking forward to, because my plan is to multi-class pretty soon here into Warlock for 2 levels and get Eldritch Blast with Agonizing and, more importantly, in my case, Repelling Blast. Because one problem that a lot of these Hunger of Hadar, Ivor's Black Tentacle, those type of Cloud Kill's another example, all those type of spells, people could just walk out of them. I mean, with Black Tentacles, they might get caught and restrained by the tentacles, in which case they can't just walk right out. But in a lot of cases, they can, right? And yes, Hunger of Hadar creates difficult terrain, so they probably have to use their entire action in the first round to dash if they want to get out. That's still, if all you did was some damage and then cause them to, 2 or 3 guys to spend their entire turn just dashing, you've effectively crowd controlled all those guys for 1 round each while also doing some damage on top of that. That's not bad. But it's even better if you can choose one of them and Repelling Blast him back into your Hunger of Hadar. So that's one of the reasons I've been looking forward to it. But I do want to relate, we had a fight in our campaign, and it was close. And the campaign's been tough so far. We've had 2 deaths. Our ranger got eaten by a giant crocodile, so that wasn't great. And then before our cleric got revivified, because we were only level 4 at the time, the rogue died, but he was just a Kenku, so we threw him on our back and carried him back to the temple and paid a bunch of money to get them to cast Raise Dead on him. So Kenku's still back in the party again, but he did die. He not just went down unconscious. He was literally dead, and we had to transport his corpse back with us. But then in this particular fight, by now we were level 5, but the Kenku went down again and almost died. The cleric went down, but not at the same time. The Kenku went down, the cleric brought him back up, and then the cleric went down later. The fighter, at one point he was down to 3 hit points. He used Second Wind, went back up to 13 hit points, and then got immediately hit for 12 damage and went back down to 1 hit point. So he didn't end up falling unconscious, but it was razor thin, right? Like the only person who was actually healthy was me, because, I'm standing way far away hitting people with spells. Because, ranged caster. But it was a tough fight. But I did manage to hit 3 of them with Hunger Hadar at one point. And I was thinking about it later. It's like, I rolled 11 off by 2 dice 6 for damage. So that was kind of nice. I mean, not that the damage really mattered. But if you're only going to do 2 dice 6 of damage before they leave, roll 11 or 12. But anyways, so I rolled 11. I do 11 damage to those 3 guys. But then they had to use their action to sprint out. And at first I was kind of like, okay, well, at least I did something. It wasn't bad. But this is why I want Repelling Blast, so I can push one of them back in again. But given how close the fight ended up being, I thought about it later. I was like, these guys each had 2 attacks around. So if they would have gotten 6 more melee attacks, that could have been the end of the party. It might have been a TPK, because we already had half the party go down, right? The fighter was on the verge of going down as well. 6 more attacks probably would have been the end of us, honestly. So just the fact that I was able to crowd control 3 of the 6 enemies for 1 turn really was no saving throw. Because the effect goes off no matter what, right? Now they're in difficult terrain and taking damage. It was probably the difference maker in that fight. So, now I think about it later on, I was like, I thought it was pretty good, but it turned out to be even better. Although it'll be even better when I can push people back into it. Sending. Sending is a spell I might want to consider keeping. It's very circumstantial, but it is pretty handy. There are a lot of times when you have to do missions to go take somebody, this information or whatever, right? But if you know them, you can just cast Sending. And they're like, okay, now we don't have to spend 6 days journeying back to the village to tell the town council that we succeeded in the mission. I cast Sending. However, if I do want to replace something, I thought 2 good options were Enemies Abound and Tongues. Tongues is a very handy language, or a very handy spell, so I can communicate with people in other languages, and it should work quite nicely with your telepathic speech as well, because now that we share a language, I can communicate telepathically. So those were the 2 that kind of stuck out, but honestly, I kind of like both these choices. I wouldn't mind keeping either one personally, but if you want to replace them, those are 2 suggestions. And by all means, feel free to look through the wizard and warlock and sorcerer spell lists and make your own choices if you have other spells that you prefer. Because I didn't write down all of them. I just wrote down the ones that I personally kind of like. There's also clairvoyance, 4th level spells. There's the divination spell, divination. there are other options, right? I just didn't write them all down. Anyways, level 7, we get our 4th level spells. We get Evoid's Black Tentacles, and we get Summon Aberration. Now, I personally love both these spells. It's funny, though, that not once in my gaming table, in 10 years of playing 5th edition, has anyone other than me ever cast Evoid's Black Tentacles. And when I did it, I was the DM, and it was some NPC villain sorceress chick that they were fighting with a bunch of her minions. She cast Evoid's Black Tentacles on the party. Nobody could seem to make a saving throw. I was going to say as if their lives depended on it, but their lives did depend on it. We almost had a TPK because it was just round after round of the party getting beaten on. This wasn't like some boss fight either. I think they even out-leveled her. It was just a random encounter. They should have been able to beat her and her little guards, but it nearly caused a TPK because nobody could roll a saving throw. So that was pretty touch and go. The party did manage to live. Nobody actually died, or maybe did somebody die and they were revivified? I can't remember. Either way, the party did end up winning in the end. But if there was ever a chance for them to see, hey, this spell's actually pretty good, maybe we should take it. But no, they didn't. Too bad. But I, on the other hand, love this spell, and I will definitely be taking it and using it, especially since I get it for free, even better. Summon Aberration. Summoning spells in general can be a bit of a hassle, but the Tasha's ones are quite excellent. The fact that you don't have to roll separate initiatives, they get your initiative but take their turn directly after you. The fact that if you lose concentration, they just disappear. They don't go hostile and turn on the party like summon Major Demon, for example, or any of those type of spells, right? They're allies to you and your party members. They're just good in general. And honestly, it's one of the best ways to boost your action economy that you can possibly do. You get your turn, and then you tell him to attack, and he gets his turn. Perfect. And honestly, all the options from Summon Aberration are pretty good. The Slad's got the regeneration, which is very nice. It also does the most damage out of the 3. Although, something I hadn't considered, but when I watched the Tentacle Tavern Inn video, from the innkeeper, he pointed out that Slad's attacks actually don't count as magical weapons, which could mean that it actually does the least damage, depending on what you're fighting. That's unfortunate. But I don't know why you couldn't give it weapons. It does have opposable thumbs. It can carry flasks and give potions and stuff. You think if you have hey, we got this +1 greatsword just laying around in our inventory. How about you use this. Whatever. Slot option's not bad. The Beholderkin's pretty good because it has range attacks and it can hover, which can be nice. It's also pretty decent if you just need somebody to explore. You can be like, fly up there and tell us what you see, And that's pretty good. Range attacks, pretty nice. I look at Star Spawn as well because it does the psychic damage. And if you're just going to be... And it does psychic damage with its melee attacks as well. It's not like the Slad where it's doing like physical slashing, right? It's doing psychic damage, which most things are not going to be immune to. So the fact that it's constantly doing like its AoE psychic damage can be pretty good. Granted, it doesn't differentiate between friend and foe, so maybe don't have your fighter and your paladin both standing right next to him unless they feel like taking some psychic damage every turn. The psychic damage isn't high, it's like 2d6, and if you make a saving throw, you take nothing. Or is it half? Either way, it doesn't matter. It's not that high. But, if you're hitting 2 or 3 things with it, it can add up. And it's got its attacks on top of that, which are doing psychic damage. And it can be a nice damage sponge, especially if it's on the front line. And this is one reason I kind of favor it over the Beholderkin sometimes. Now, granted, if you've got a bunch of frontliners, maybe you don't need another thing on the front line, right? And then maybe you just want the range attack of the Beholderkin. But either way, I quite like Summon Aberration a lot. It's one that, as we level up more, I think I'm actually going to consider using like 6th level spell slots on it at some point, because it just gets an extra attack around at that point. Its armor class a little higher, it's a little beefier. You can get even more value out of this if you can convince, you like Summon Aberration, use like maybe extended spell meta magic, so now you get 2 hours out of it. Then you convince the cleric to cast 8 on the party, including on your, aberration, so he can have more hit points. That's one place where the Slide could really shine as well, because he has regeneration. And because hit points from something like Aid, they're not temporary hit points. It just increases your hit point maximum. So now he's just going to be regenerating up to that. It's not like those temporary hit points where they're going to be gone, and now he's just, regenerating up to his usual amount again, right? Either way, though, all those are pretty good options. Level 9, we get our 5th level spells. We get Rory's Telepathic Bond and Telekinesis. Again, both of these... Oh, I should have said... even though I personally love your options at 7, there is a chance that you might not want to use one or either of those spells. So I did write down a couple suggestions. One of them is Confusion. Very nice crowd control effect spell. And the other one is Rothalim's Psychic Lance from Fizban's Treasury of Dragons, if you have access to that book. It's a pretty nice spell as well. So there are some other options. Although personally, I have no problem with keeping both of those spells. Either way, choice is yours. Do what you will. Back to level 9 again, though. Like I said, Rory's Telepathic Bond, Telekinesis. Telepathic Bond is actually really nice. It's one that I kind of slept on for a while because our table tends to just act as if we have Rory's Telepathic Bond anyway. But it's actually a really good spell. Telekinesis, again, has some combat uses, but it's also pretty handy for exploration. You can telekinetically lift your ally up to a ledge or whatever else you need. It can be pretty good for a lot of different things. However, I do think that 5th level spells are pretty valuable, and if you want to trade out one or both of these, I don't really blame you. So I wrote down, there's actually a fairly decent list here. My number 1 pick, though, is Synaptic Static. Basically does Fireball, except it's a 5th level spell slot instead of a 3rd. But anybody who fails their saving throw, not only do they take psychic damage, which is better than fire damage generally, but they also get like this muddled condition, which gives them a minus d6 on all their attack rolls and on concentration saving throws. So, and it's an intelligence save too, which is way better to target usually than dex. Not always, of course, right? If you're fighting a wizard, then intelligence is probably not a great choice. But most things, intelligence is. So overall, yes, an upcasted fireball would do more damage, but I don't really even care about the damage so much. It's like the fact that I can do some damage, but also just debuff these guys is really nice. Now, they do get a saving throw at the end of every round to try to overcome the muddled condition. But again, it's still an intelligence save, so, good chance they might fail depending on what they are. Either way, that takes us to the end of the extra spells. I don't know why my nose is so itchy. But anyways, now I want to talk about Sonic Sorcery. And as I said earlier, this ability is actually insanely good. Once I started using it, I started realizing just how good it really is and how you can kind of abuse it. So maybe I've tried, my DM sometimes gets really funny about certain things like this. So I personally try to like scale it back and not push things too far because I know that if I do, he's just going to get mad about it and not want to let me use it anymore. So I kind of have to be a little more restrained with it than I would like. Get a couple extra spells a day out of it or whatever. But even then, it's still great. So, Sonic Sorcery, level 6. When you cast any spell of first level or higher from your Psionic Spells feature, which, by the way, should include spells you traded out, right? Because now those ones are treated as Psionic Spells. You can cast it by, like the new ones you traded deal run out for. I mean, obviously, you have to have the spell in order to use it, right? Just to be clear. You can cast a spell as normal or by spending a number of sorcery points equal to the spell's level. If you cast a spell using sorcery points, it requires no verbal or somatic components, and it requires no material components unless they are consumed by the spell. So basically, you're getting subtle casting for free. And like I said, because a lot of these are good social spells, that's actually quite excellent. If you're using like, dominate person or whatever. Oh, I only mentioned Synaptic Static. My other level 9 choices were for the 5th level spells were Dominate Person, Hold Monster, and Scrying. But Synaptic Static's just better than all of them, which is why I didn't even bother mentioning them. But I did write them down. I should at least complete the list. Oh, I'm such an idiot sometimes. But anyways, the thing is with this, if you look at like conversion rates for like, how you can convert sorcery points into spell slots and spell slots into sorcery points. If you converted, say, a 4th level spell slot into sorcery points, you're getting 4 sorcery points. It's 1 per spell level. But to convert sorcery points into spell slots is actually much more expensive. I believe it's 7 off the top of my head. I don't remember for sure to go to 4th level. So, in other words, let's say you wanted to, we'll use Summon Aberration as an example, right? Let's say you wanted to cast your Summon Aberration spell. You cast it. You could use your 4th level spell slot. Let's say you have 2 of those, so you could cast that, and do it twice, right? But you could just spend 4 sorcery points. And then you could spend 4 more sorcery points later, do it a second time. You could use your spell slots and do it a couple more times. And you could even convert lower level spells into sorcery points and then convert those sorcery points not into spell slots, but just use them to recast the spell again. Like you could literally cast a spell 5, 6, 7 times in a day if you were able to just convert enough lower level spell slots into sorcery points to just keep buying this spell back again at 4 sorcery points per cast. Like, that's actually ridiculously good. And like I said, like I use that one because it has an hour duration. So it's very easy to start seeing that if you had, if you cast Summon Aberration, let's say 5 or 6 times on an adventuring day, that's going to be the majority of the day. You're just going to have this minion with you pretty much the entire time. Like I said, your DM might not like that though, so maybe don't push quite so hard. But, getting an extra 1 or 2 a day, maybe, starting to get a lot more value out of it, And once I started like really using this feature a lot more, I started to realize just how incredibly powerful it is to be able to like convert others, like especially like 1st or 2nd level spell slots. I like to maintain a few 1st level spell slots if I need absorb elements, if I want to use silvery barbs, if I want to cast shield on myself. It's good to have a few of those. But level 2, I have web. I also have scorching ray, and I have mirror image. Then I have my, then I have like the actual ones on my spell list. What I detect thoughts. There we go. So there are some other options there. I also got Tasha's Mind Whip. So some of those I might want to use as well. But I probably don't need all of them. I could convert, like, say, 2 of them into sorcery points and get an extra summon aberration. That's probably going to be a much better deal for me. And, being able to turn 2 of my second level spell slots into a 4th level spell slot is essentially way better than doing it through the sorcery point conversion that we usually have to pay, because it's just way more expensive. And this really gives you a lot more leverage on how you want to use your spell slots, which, this is something sorcerers are already good at, but now you're just taking it to a whole new level, and you're just able to, like, mileage that out so much better. And personally, I just think it is a phenomenal ability. So, like I said, this is yet another example, at least to me, of, you read something in the book and you think, yeah, okay, that sounds pretty cool. It's nice that you have that flexibility, and you can do it with sorcery points, or you could do it with your spell slots. It's good that you can do it either one. But then when you start actually using it, you realize, like, wow, this is actually even better than I already thought it was. And overall, I'm really, really enjoying the Aberrant Mind Sorcerer. I think that it is very, very strong, and I'm just having a blast doing it. I can't wait to, multiclass into Warlock, of course, and get my Repelling Blast so I can get even more mileage out of my Hunger of Hadar and my Evard's Black Tentacles and some of those type of spells. But the Aberrant Mind is just even stronger than I thought, and I already thought it was strong. So anyways, that's basically everything I had to say for this video. I'm enjoying the class a lot, and I think anybody else who's played it has probably kind of found the same thing as me, honestly, that it's really, really good. Anyways, that's everything for this video, so feel free to like, subscribe, comment, ring the bell for notifications, all the typical YouTube stuff. But most importantly, leave me your comments in the comment section. I would love to hear about your ideas or your own experiences playing an Aberrant Mind Sorcerer, or how you think it stacks up versus some of the other sorcerer subclasses. Your ideas on which spells you like to keep from the subclass list, or which ones you would trade out and which ones you would trade them out for. I think that kind of stuff is very, very interesting. And, I have certain play styles that I generally tend to gravitate towards, but that doesn't mean that those are the best or only ways to play the game. I tend to like control spells a lot, and focus less on damage. But that doesn't mean that damage spells aren't great too. Like Fireball is great for a reason. There's a reason people love Fireball, including me, right? So I'm just saying, like, a lot of times I might have a certain way of looking at things, but that doesn't mean it's the only way or even the best way, right? And this is why I like other people giving their comments and their input and saying, like, hey, I did this and it worked great, or I tried this or I tried that. Again, just actual played experience is just usually better than, like, theory crafting any day of the week. So whenever I have a chance to go back and revisit a subject that I talked about before, but usually with something that I never actually had a chance to play, I'm just like reading in the book and giving my thoughts on it. If I have a chance to actually play it and then go back and talk about it, I usually find that I just have so much more insight into it, because now I've actually experienced what the class is like. I've used it in different situations. I've been in combat. I've been in social situations. I've had fights which were, like, down to the wire, but we were saved because of silvery barbs. That literally happened to us in a different fight. Like I said, I always kind of felt like Hunger of Hadar was kind of cool, but guys can just dash out, not bad, but not great. And then this last fight, I was like, man, we probably would have died if they hadn't had to use their action to dash, right? Like, that just would have been even more attacks on a party that barely survived as it was and had nothing left to heal or fight with, Was it the only one? I also tried casting Web later when they were all way away from Hunger of Hadar, and every single one of them made their saving throws. 0 for 4 for me on Web there. I was just like, how did this happen? 4 guys. I'm like, oh, okay, they're all bunched up. I'm going to hit 4 of them in my web, and I've got careful spells so I can save the fighter and the cleric, and neither one of them are going to have to make a saving throw this round because they just automatically pass, right? And then they could get out of the web. No, nothing got webbed. What do you do? It just sometimes it happens. But anyways, That's everything. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.